Hey, what's going on, everyone? Hunter with Robo Outdoors, and today we're going to be doing the first half of our 2-week Wyoming trip. So essentially like the first week, maybe a little bit more into that, but enjoy. So to start this trip off, we ended up meeting down in Zeeland, Michigan at the Orbis Overland headquarters. And here we ended up staying overnight, making sure we're doing final checks and all. And of course, staying in our skinny guy camper. This thing is a very crucial piece of equipment for this trip, for at least my family. And you'll see some of that here shortly. But this thing is upfitted with everything. Alright, now let's get into some of the different rigs that we got going on. First off is going to be my buddy Scott in the Rescue Ranger. Now this is a newer 2022 Ford Tremor in the Ranger configuration, if you will, and he's towing a Vector off-road trailer. Now, leading this expedition is going to be my friend Patrick from Orbis Overlanding. And he's the one who pretty much does all kinds of different trips. He's organized all kinds of different trips, but this one is going to be the best that I've been on so far. So with that, the next morning, we all ended up rolling out of Orbis Overland HQ to meet up at our first camp spot. Which, you know, was pretty comfortable, I might add. And for this trip, we met up with our buddy Jason, who you might know as All Things Overlanding, that guy right there, and headed out west. If you've ever drove out west from the Midwest, you'll know that it's a lot of fields, a lot of the same views for hours. And hours. And hours. But you get the gist of it, so I don't want to bore you too much with that. Alright, so we're kind of taking a little dinner break here. We've pretty much been on the road all day. Ended up staying in Davenport the other night. Not Davenport, I don't know, somewhere in Iowa. But I've actually been getting 18 to almost 19 miles per gallon, which is pretty sweet. But yeah, so got all the rigs over there. There's Jason. Scott's cooking up some tacos right now. A real quick, easy meal. Caitlin and Ivory in the little thing over there. And there's Patrick, big chilling over there. So we'll go eat some food. So this is the first big road trip that we've had our daughter Ivory on, and she did absolutely phenomenal. Of course, a lot of the gear that we ended up bringing was for her. Scott's trailer ended up being an awesome addition to the convoys. Fast forwarding to all the boring driving that we did that first day, we ended up staying at this kind of interesting looking campsite in Colorado. We didn't end up getting there till late at night, and there were tons and tons of bugs, so in and out of the tent super quick. So with that, we started heading towards Loveland, Colorado. Now the beginning of the BDR starts at about the Wyoming Colorado border in a small town. For me, it's always a treat coming to Colorado. What we are driving through is where I've done a lot of elk and mule deer hunting, so I was pretty familiar with the Loveland area, and getting back to come here is always a treat for me. I absolutely love Colorado, and if you've never been there, I highly, highly suggest it. A lot of these steeper rocks is where you can find bighorn sheep, but unfortunately they must have been hiding out because we didn't end up seeing any on this trip. we started heading into Estes Park and decided to stop at this little pullout which had a cool little stream running by it. Take some pictures, kind of get out, stretch our feet, all that fun stuff. The river was full of fly fishermen, which my younger brother would have loved to have been here for this. Once we did reach Estes Park, and if you're not familiar with Estes Park, it's a town in Colorado that really I think is for having elk just wandering about the town. And if you're an outdoorsman and a hunter such as myself, you will see some giants in there. But the route we ended up wanting to take through Colorado ended up being blocked off by the national park, which you would have had to reserve certain times to travel through, which we didn't, so we ended up turning back around and finding an alternative route up to the start of the Wyoming BDR. Now, I love the mountains because when you get near to the top, you have views like this. It was a spot right off the highway, so of course we had to stop and take some pictures and videos and all. So for whatever reason, at the beginning of this trip, I was not feeling too good, so I let Caitlin drive for a little bit. She's driven off-road, just not in my truck. Alright, so we made it to our first official campsite on BDR, and it's a pretty sweet little open field type with this really cool stream in it. If I sound a little garbled, it's because for whatever reason I am not feeling too good, but powering through it. So really sweet spot. How you like it? Yeah. So I got the skinny guy all set up there and picked up one of these little shower tents, so that way we can give a little one a bath and take showers ourselves. And truck's all muddy. Caitlin ended up taking it and driving it around a little bit to get here because I was attempting to nap in the passenger seat. But yeah, I think I'm gonna set up camp, take a nap, and maybe get some food later. So with finding that pretty cool campsite, we officially begun our journey on the Wyoming BDR. Now the route kind of S's from south to north in different sections that, if you go visit the BDR's website, are actually pretty well mapped out and points of interest on there, things of that nature. So in our convoy, we have Patrick leading the way as our navigation and team leader. Scott is following behind in his trailer, who is also designated as our team medic. Jason and his new Nissan Frontier is the official social media guy, who obviously you should have figured that if you've been familiar with his YouTube channel. And then myself at the tail end is kind of the recovery / security guy. Because, well, let's face it, I make a great anchor. The views of the mountains never get old to me. And honestly, I've never been to Wyoming, so some of these views were unexpected. When I think of Wyoming, I think of flat prairie lands with a lot of cows roaming around, and there certainly was that, as you'll see later on in the video, but I did not expect some of the gorgeous mountain views here. So once we officially hit the first off-road section of the BDR, we decided to stop and air down our tires.
which will make the ride a lot more comfortable. It also gains added stability and gripness, if you will. Now with the BDR, this first section has what's referred to as an expert section, which we were like, hey, let's give it a whirl and see what happens. And well, unfortunately, we've seen what was there once we got to the top.
Well, this is pretty cool. That's not pretty cool though. These snowdrifts are like up to my waist. They have a pretty steep drop on the other side. So it just keeps going one after the other after the other. So I think this is going to be turning around point. This is the expert level portion of this, but it's pretty much just been this gravel road that we've been driving on. But I mean, it's pretty. It's definitely pretty. I'm assuming that is the expert part, because I don't even know if I went through that. I would honestly probably just sink through most of this stuff, so that sucks. That's cool.
Yeah. Was that on there?
And with that, we've begun to head down the normal route on the BDR and to continue going through this beautiful countryside. Which eventually opened up to what you would expect to see in Wyoming, kind of some rolling hills and fields and cows. Lots and lots of cows. So we headed down into town and get some lunch. And of course, what do you know, look what we found. And I had to get a picture out in front. Once our stomachs were full, we continued to carry on the plan of the day, moving through the first section of the BDR. Before you know it, we were back to climbing the mountains again. I'm a sucker for water crossings. Even if they aren't the deepest, I just think it's so much fun to roll through a stream or creek or river or what have you.
Alright, so we made it to the end of the first little section piece of the Wyoming BDR. Another, again, really cool campsite, kind of everybody else's setup in this woods here. And then we opted for a little bit more open scenery here, and feel a lot better than I did yesterday, but still a little stuffed up and all that, but we'll be alright. They're out there cooking some dinner right now. We got a little fire going, and yeah, just kind of hanging out by the fire for tonight. And the Skinny Guy camper has been absolutely phenomenal for the family, so we are really enjoying this. I mean, it's nice in general when you're solo camping, just for the fact that you pretty much have a camper. Like everything you'd find in an RV, they fit into this little package, except for air conditioning, but that is coming. So, well, I'm going to go ahead and get some food, and see you guys in a bit.
So unfortunately this morning at camp, Scott slipped a knife and cut himself kind of deep. Nothing too bad. They were able to get it taken care of pretty quickly, and we were able to power on through the trip. However, he did miss a decent bit of section 2, which wasn't too terribly long. However, it was very bumpy. And we did end up taking a little side tour up to an area that, well, like the expert section of the very first section, was completely covered in snow. And it didn't look too bad, it was open, so we figured, hey, let's send the heavy one through to go ahead and try and break up some of this stuff.
Next couple go all the way over the road. Yeah. Maybe back up and just nudge. Yeah. breakdown. I mean, we could shovel it. It's gonna be some work, but.
So I just went and cleared a bunch of snow up in that direction, but unfortunately it just gets way too bad. So we are going to turn around and try to find an alternative route. I don't know what that will be, but might be pavement, who knows. Hopefully you can continue to stay off-road on today. It's supposed to be a short day, only like 80 some miles or something like that. But, well, at least we gave it the good old try. So Scott had to run into town because he cut his finger pretty bad this morning making food. And I'm still not 100% yet, but taking meds and trying to rest when I can. And just a big mess right now. So turn around and see what we can find. We have been doing some on and off the pavement road driving, whatever you want to call it. So we aired back up to take a little trip to this trail that we're on currently, and then what we've all kind of decided to do is find that happy medium to where, especially for today at least, where it won't be as bad off-road here down for PSI, but we'll still be able to get out and, you know, like 60, 65, whatever, and not really worry too much. Usually I air down to about 30 psi. The tires keep 50 normally when I'm driving around, but especially with it being this heavy and whatnot. The compressor has been having some issues, probably because we're at such high elevation. Typically I can use like one of those 2-gallon tanks to fill up a tire, but I did like 3 of those tanks in one tire, and it didn't really fill it up much. So unfortunately Jason had a different kind of compressor there that we were able to air me back up to, but at least this way I'll be able to probably stay at 40 and be okay for the rest of the trip. But let's see what the next little segment brings us.
You know, when I think about an overlanding rig, Subaru was probably not the first one that comes to mind, but these things continue to surprise me. You can see how bumpy this section of the BDR is with all these small rocks all over the trail. It made for a very, very rough, bouncy day. At this point in the trail, we ended up running into another group of overlanders that were traveling the BDR from north to south, and they gave us some pretty good intel on the Bighorn Mountain area, and that was, it took them 12 hours to go 60 miles because they had been getting so much rain that the trails were just caked with mud, and they were getting stuck up to their axles. And they have a good variety of vehicles, also being similar weights and everything, so they could winch each other out. If I was to bury my axles on this trip, I'm not sure what we would do if we didn't have anything to winch to, but that would have been a fun excursion. One of the key points of interest on the Wyoming BDR is this lookout tower, which the trail to bring you up there is pretty steep, but it's pretty fun. Nothing too difficult by any means, but the view at the top is definitely worth it. We ended up linking back up with Scott and Elkhorn and making way to our next campsite, which happened to be in this Red Rock area, which reminded me kind of the southwest United States, kind of Arizona Red Rock, if you will, but Wyoming had a good diversity of white and red rock, which is pretty cool to see. And with that, we close out the day to get ready to the next section of the BDR, which was mostly highway until we ended up getting to this cool little town, which we stopped and had lunch. Always have to go to the local joints when you're out traveling. This day we pretty much ended up wandering around what was essentially rolling hills trying to find the campsite, which the route ended up being blocked and going into private land, which if you're not too familiar with Wyoming, there's all kinds of trails in public and private land, and basically it's gated off for cattle, but you can still pass through it, given that you close the gate if it's closed and leave it open if it's open. However, this section was really blocked off, so we decided to find a spot, make camp, and pick up the next day.
Alright, so we made it to camp for the third day, and we've actually kind of started the third section, gone through what I would say is probably a decent bit of it. The campsite's pretty sweet. We're about, I think you said 9,000 feet elevation. Feeling a lot better, which is good, especially for the elevation that we're at. But got the skinny guy all set up there, and Caitlin's going to be cooking some food in a minute. And I think we're going to kind of use this little open area over here to have our little campfire, our little hangout spot. So see, Patrick's got his gazelle over there. Jason's got his rooftop tent open. Scott's over by me with his trailer set up. Scott is fine. He got his stitches taken care of and met up with us in Elk Mountain, and Ken's over there playing on some rocks. So, well, all right. I haven't really ate much, but I'm gonna get some food. What are you doing? You make a mess in here? Another nice morning here in Wyoming. Feeling much better. And this spot, it was pretty interesting. We were having a fire kind of back over that way, and like all the smoke was just like staying up on this hill, even though there was a little bit of a breeze. Kind of made things a little eerie, a little creepy, but it was pretty sweet. So we got camp all packed up. We pushed a little bit further on the third section of the BDR, and so today we're going to be starting or finishing the last part of section 3, and then going on to section 4. So it'll be a pretty good little push like we did yesterday. It sounds like the Bighorn Mountains are completely just mucky mud. We passed a group yesterday, and they're doing the BDR in reverse. They had 4 vehicles just like us, and they said they made it 60 miles in 12 hours because they just kept constantly getting stuck in the mud. And that section that they were doing was like fairly open. There's not like trees to winch to, and so with the weight of this thing, I think we're gonna kind of bypass all that, maybe spend another day going into the Tetons. I know we're gonna be doing that tomorrow, so that'll be really cool. And then perhaps maybe come home a day early. I don't know. I know we're gonna kind of take our time going home and disperse camp and all that kind of stuff. So should be pretty good. But we're gonna get on the road.
Stay tuned for the next portion of the Wyoming BDR Part 2, where we run into some other issues, as well as a lot more cows.